May I never cease to thank you for the honor of serving as your bishop and of addressing you when we gather in convention. I'd like to share some of what I see from the vantage point of my role, looking back on the past year and forward to the year ahead. Our convention theme this year is, as you know, upholding one another in love, drawing from the Apostle Paul's letter to the Ephesians, in which he writes, "I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beg you to lead a life worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love." The phrase bearing with, while an accurate translation of the text, doesn't convey the richness of what Paul is saying here. He's not suggesting tolerance, putting up with each other, the way we might with an irritating neighbor or crotchety relative, though we wouldn't be human if we didn't feel that way at times. The word translated into English as bearing with has an expansive and generous meaning. It's more like active support with intention and strength. In other words, upholding one another in love. And the first thing I'd like to say is that's what I see in you. Bishop Matthew Hyde from the Diocese of New York likes to say that the Holy Spirit works at the ground level, and it's true. Every Sunday when I worship with a different congregation, in every conversation with lay and clergy leaders, reading your newsletters, I see and I hear how you are upholding one another in love. And not through your own strength and good intentions alone, though you have strength and good intentions, but also through the love of God which flows through you by the Spirit's power. And that's always important for us to remember. As Paul writes in another letter, it is the God who said, "Let light shine out of darkness," who has shone in our hearts, to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. But we have this treasure in clay jars, so that it be made clear that this extraordinary power belongs to God and does not come from us. But I must say, you are beautiful clay jars. And the ways you embody the love of Christ is such an inspiration, and was particularly noteworthy in this past year. It would be hard to overstate the impact across our region and in our congregations of the reduction of the federal workforce, changes in immigration policies, rates of detention and deportation, and other funding cuts to schools, social service agencies, and other nonprofit organizations. And this didn't impact us in the abstract. One of the first questions I would ask our lay leaders whenever we met in the past year was, "Do you still have a job?" And so many times, the answer was no, or "I still do today." And you have responded to all of these challenges with love. You've organized support groups for those who have lost or fear losing their jobs. You've established in your congregations emergency funds for those same families, and increased your support for the organizations that provide food, medicine, and rent money to those who need them. You're offering grief support, networking for new employment opportunities, and countless expressions of neighborly love. On the diocesan level, we've attempted to amplify and work to strengthen your efforts. We've had a few diocesan-wide support gatherings. We established a diocesan emergency fund, which last year gave away over $50,000 to individuals and families, and distribution sites in 26 congregations across all 8 regions. Through the extraordinary generosity of gifts to the Bishop's Discretionary Fund this year, we were able to distribute another $80,000. And through a trust reserved for serving the poor and needy, we gave an emergency grant to Samaritan Ministries totaling $75,000. It's you. In an economy that's often described as K-shaped, with people and congregations, with things, if you're going well, it continues to go well, and if it's not going well, it's getting worse. We have people and congregations on both slant lines of that K. Some are doing well, and our wealth is increasing, while others of us are struggling and on a downward trajectory. And those of you serving congregations in economically struggling areas, while struggling yourselves, are doing all you can to uphold one another and be a blessing to your neighbors. And those of you with more to give are giving more. I see it in your congregations, in the nonprofits you support, and in your support of our diocesan efforts. And it must be said that just because a household or a congregation is situated in an affluent part of our diocese, not every household or even every congregation there has sufficient resources. The largest growth in food insecurity is occurring on the west side of Montgomery County. It's one of the wealthiest counties in the country. Those of you serving and living in our immigrant congregations, while facing unspeakable challenges, are upholding one another and so many more with sacrificial love. You're collecting food and clothing for those in your neighborhood and beyond who are desperate now. You're caring for children whose parents have been detained. Others in the diocese are coming alongside our immigrant communities in courageous and loving ways. You're providing groceries for those who are afraid to go to the store or to work for fear of being detained. You're walking their children to school. You're accompanying them to medical appointments or immigration hearings. You're offering legal assistance. Some of you are stepping up to ensure guardianship for children whose parents are deported. And in every one of our congregations, without exception, there are saints among us. Those who quietly and faithfully go about their ministries of love without expecting anything in return, like the ones in Jesus' parable, the servants who said they deserved no reward because they were simply doing their job. These people you feel like you're simply doing what God's asked you to do. Nonetheless, I have asked the clergy and wardens this year to lift up for us those who embody such courage and love in your communities, so that we might pray in thanksgiving for them and thank them, letting them know how much they mean to us. And every person nominated throughout this year will receive a letter of recognition, a small gift, and our prayers of gratitude. 3 of our nominees are here or will be here today, and we will recognize them after lunch. Something else that I have noticed in this past year that I see is that an increasing number of our EDOW congregations are experiencing numerical growth in attendance and engagement, particularly among younger adults, though the age range and the situations of those finding their way to us is quite broad. And this numerical growth of ours is consistent with news across the country about an increased spiritual longing and interest in religion, and to the astonishment of some, interest in traditional expressions of religion, like the Episcopal Church. Now, we aren't seeing the explosive growth that you've perhaps read and is reported in some, but the growth is real, and it's happening across congregations, across our regions, but though not as uniformly as we would hope. And in some of the growing congregations, the increase in people has also meant financial growth, as evidenced by successful annual pledge drives and an impressive number of capital campaigns this year, reaching their goals. But that's not true for everyone. Growth, I mean, for those who are growing, it's not true. It doesn't necessarily mean financial growth, because growth doesn't automatically lead to financial security if the growth is among people of modest means or coupled with high numbers of layoffs. So it can be a leading indicator of growth, but not necessarily one that is easing the financial responsibilities of the congregation. Let me say, though, that it's hard to talk about growth in a diocesan-wide gathering because it can lead to uneasiness and sadness, even a sense of failure among those who aren't experiencing it. And I understand that. But let me say what we all know, that there are a variety of factors that need to be in place for congregations to thrive. And there are obstacles that prevent or limit that thriving. Some of the obstacles are external, beyond our control. Many are internal. And some of our congregations are dealing with numerous obstacles and insufficient financial and leadership resources with which to address them, which is exactly why we are investing such a large portion of our diocesan resources and staff to congregational revitalization efforts and have actively sought outside funding to support this work. Our most notable outside support comes from the Lilly Endowment, which has granted us $1,750,000 for our work over a period of 8 years in 2 separate initiatives. And the good news is that the participating congregations in those initiatives, by and large, have found that partnership and collaboration with the diocese is helpful, and in some instances, as one rector put it, a real game changer. In reality, there are no quick remedies for congregations facing real, often multiple obstacles to the growth and vitality they long for. It takes time, this work, honest assessment, a willingness to learn new things, and to grow ourselves in faith and in love. So let me remind you of the foundation for our congregational work. There it is. Vital, healthy congregations have, and this is on the website if you can't see it clearly, this is the Parish Vitality Wheel. Vital, healthy congregations have certain characteristics in common. As part of our strategic plan, we identified 7 of them as a diagnostic tool and a means of establishing specific paths toward vitality in a given congregation. Looking at all 7 may be validating for some of you because they are descriptors of your congregation's life, though you may use different language. For others, it can feel overwhelming because of the many obstacles you face. But the good news is that you don't have to work at all 7 all the time, or at the same time, I should say. And in fact, it would be absolute failure if you did that. The congregations that are making the most progress have focused their energies on 1 or at most 2 vitality areas in a season. And what we're learning is that movement in one area has a galvanizing and leveraging effect on others. And so what every congregational leadership body needs to discern is which area is God calling them to focus on now, and what would have the greatest impact. Or put another way, where is there energy and possibility for movement? Or what obstacle is truly holding you back? And many congregations among us are doing that holy and courageous discerning work. Some of you are doing it in collaboration with others or exploring that possibility. So let me speak now about collaborations, because it's one of those things that we all seem to believe in, but it's understandably really hard to do. And it's hard for several reasons. It takes time and effort, and it generally falls into that category of work that the author Stephen Covey famously called important but not urgent. And most of us are dealing with urgent tasks most of the time, and thus the important and not urgent work can fall away. More pointedly is the fact that collaboration involves risk. And those of you who are doing well don't want to be weighed down by another congregation's problems, because Lord knows it takes all of your energy and more to tend to your own corner of the Lord's vineyard. And I understand that. And in fact, that's your most important contribution to the whole, is tending to your congregation's vitality. The universal concern and deterrent to collaboration, actually, is the strong desire to preserve your congregation's identity, your unique identity, and your independence. And as I've told you before, every congregation, or nearly every congregation in the diocese, makes a point of telling me how unique it is, which of course is true. You are. And canonically, your leaders have considerable autonomy, authority, and independence. I recognize that. And for some, the path of vitality may seem to require very little from others in the diocese, except at critical junctures, such as clergy transitions or emergency situations. By and large, some of you experience yourself as better off, mostly on your own. I understand, I really do. Though it turns out from time to time, being a part of the diocese is helpful for everyone. And at other times, it's costly, which is what upholding one another in love looks like in most relationships. What I'm here to tell you is that we are here for you when you need us. We are here for you when you need us. For some congregations, however, the path of vitality will require collaboration with others, because you simply don't have enough. You don't have enough capacity to thrive and grow on your own. You can hold steady for a time, maybe even a long time, and you can gradually decline, all on your own. But the likelihood for growth and vitality is slim. It's not your fault, but it's true, and the trajectory is clear. But hear me again, you are not alone. We are here for you. In this diocese, we uphold one another in love, and we do so, actually, far more than we may realize. Here's just a few examples. Through the steady care of our regional deans, genuine friendships across our congregations, and regional and diocesan gatherings, we're learning to collaborate in ways that are life-giving, even when we face hard things. And from my role, I see it all the time. Whenever we gather leaders for a learning day or part of a cohort, when we use resources from churches that have closed to help us start new ones, to help one another through mutual aid channels and listservs that we've established, and the work we do together for preserving God's creation, migrant support ministry, and reparations. Every leadership body in this diocese is an expression of collaboration, and my heartfelt thanks to those of you who agreed to serve. And I'd like just to ask you, if any of you are now or have served on a diocesan committee or collaborative initiative, would you please raise your hand? Thank you. Thank you. And you know, actually, you should all raise your hands, because today is an expression of a collaborative spirit. So would you turn around and say to somebody, would you thank them for upholding all of us in love? Just thank each other. Now, I'm going to say this several times going forward, but I'm going to say it now. If anything I'm about to describe piques your interest, please stop by the EDOW table, which is where? Over there. Or any of the exhibitors areas, and meet your staff, those who work daily to sustain and support the ministries entrusted to us all. Now, moving now to the future. As a segue, let me remind you that at convention last year, I promised that in 2025 we would undertake comprehensive evaluation of the strategic plan that we began in 2020, and then discern next steps. And we have done that evaluation in a variety of ways. And I want to thank all of you who participated. And what we have learned, both in group conversations and in our leadership bodies, is that the overall goals of the original plan and the initiatives we've undertaken as a result are still, by and large, consistent with what our leaders feel should be priorities for us, though we've received good feedback on ways we could do better. And thus, the Diocesan Council and the Standing Committee, which are the two leadership bodies to which I am most accountable when this convention is not in session, they approved our going forward one more year with a refreshed expression of our strategic plan. So I'd like to cast our gaze to this year and tell you some of what you can expect from me and your diocesan leadership. But first, let me say again that we know that the Holy Spirit works at the ground level, that the foundational ministry of our diocese is in our congregations, that every Sunday when you gather around the table of Jesus to draw strength from his presence, to hear the word of God as revealed in Scripture and interpreted to those entrusted with the pulpit, to experience the sustaining, loving grace of Christian community, it's at the ground level, where we know and love our neighbors and seek forgiveness for our failings and strive for justice and peace. Nothing is more important than that. And with that understanding, here is a review of what we stated as our mission and vision for our strategic collective work and the three overall priorities of diocesan ministry. Our mission is to draw people to Jesus and embody his love for the world by equipping our faith communities, promoting spiritual growth, and striving for justice. And our vision is to be a diocese that draws on the gifts of all God's people to serve Christ together and live Jesus' way of love. And again, our three priorities as a diocese are to revitalize our congregations, inspire every person to grow in faith, and equip our leaders to lead well, and impact our communities through service and justice. So I'm going to spend some time on our church revitalization efforts. And let me say that, and you're seeing now is the summary of our plan, but let me say that church revitalization is at the ground level too. It's not in the abstract. And our focus is with the congregations that choose to engage, and that's what you see in the first objective, that we are strengthening and expanding our revitalization initiatives, including the launch of Planting Seeds for Renewal, funded by Lilly, a new one-year offering that can engage up to 12 congregations each year for the next 3 years. We are also completing the work of tending our soil, and we are engaging vigorously with the Committee on Black Church Ministries with a series of workshops that will engage up to 14 congregations this year. And we will, through the School of Christian Faith and Leadership, share what we are learning through these initiatives with anyone in the congregation that wants to learn as you pursue vitality in your ways that honor each unique context and mission. And the Committee on Black Church Ministries workshop, they're the result of a sustained effort by our historic and predominantly Black congregations to work toward vitality together, gathering resources and focusing on the particular obstacles our Black churches face. So let me say a bit more about the Planting Seeds of Renewal. Again, it's a one-year program designed to help you take the next step toward greater vitality. And if you'd like to learn more, there are 2 open houses scheduled. You can see the dates, you can always contact us, and there's a whole lot more information at the Diocesan Resource Table. You can always talk to Ken and Anne-Marie Jeffrey or Miss Amanda Anderson. Continuing with revitalization, in 2026 as a diocese, we will launch at least 2 new cross-parish collaborations, and we will take the next strategic steps for our 3 new communities of faith, which are the Well, Water and Wilderness Church, and the East of the River initiatives so that they can continue on their path. And I want to say now a word about them, our new faith communities. One of the goals of the original strategic plan was to launch up to 3 new worshiping communities. And for 2 years, we did broad demographic studies to determine where we were underrepresented and where there was potential for a new expression of Episcopal worship. And several years ago, Holy Trinity Episcopal Church in Bowie, Maryland closed after a long season of decline. Bowie itself, however, is a growing area, and we still have there Holy Trinity Day School. It's one of our more successful K-8 schools that serves predominantly African American families in East Prince George's County. And 2 years ago, we hired the Reverend Rondesia Jarrett Schell as a church planter in Bowie. And Reverend Ronnie, as she's known in Bowie, will address us later today and give us an update on the well. And for a time, it seemed to us that the well would be our only new church start. But last year, 2 new opportunities emerged. The Reverend Pete Nunnally, known to many already for his commitment to the environment and love of outdoor worship. See the snow on his hat? He approached us, he came to us with the idea of a partnership for Water and Wilderness Church, which seeks to build a Christian community among those whose spirituality is best nourished in nature. And there are a lot of people for whom that is true. And Pete came to us with a 2-year proposal asking that we fund half required for the launch, and he made a commitment to raise the rest through the community gathered, and we agreed. And then we've begun initiative to see how we might plant new seeds of faith and community collaboration in the Washington, D.C. neighborhoods east of the Anacostia River, where St. Philip the Evangelist closed last year. We've hired the Reverend Melanie Mullen to conduct a feasibility study, and she is now working on our behalf, building relationships with potential partners, including the 3 Episcopal churches east of the river and the Bishop Walker School, and a whole host of others to discern what a new Episcopal presence of service and worship might be part of the overall transformation east of the Anacostia River and strengthening our collective witness there. And you can learn about these through 3 new church plants. You can learn more about them at the resource table. So that's congregational revitalization. I'm going to move now to our second priority, inspiring every person to grow in faith, equipping our leaders to lead well. Again, what you see are specific goals with measurable outcomes. We're going to offer 4 interactive leadership days on topics that our congregational leaders have requested. You can put the next slide up, please. They're already scheduled. One on the discernment of lay and ordained ministry, another on vestry service as spiritual leadership, another on community organizing tools for use in congregations, and another second Warden Summit, building on the fruitfulness of the first. So we're doing that this year. We are also going to release a newly developed guide for confirmation preparation, expand the reach of the school's vestry training, and develop more resources online focused on parish finance and prayer and discernment. We will also provide dependable and visible support for youth and young adult ministries across the diocese, including support for the newly organized DC Fellowship, Episcopal Fellowship for people in their 20s and 30s, a retreat for formation leaders, a youth confirmation retreat day in the spring, and a youth service day in the fall. We will invest funding and coaching support in at least 4 parishes near colleges and universities looking to cultivate meaningful ministry and relationships with their campus neighbors. And you saw the embodiment of that support in the person who read our letter to the Ephesians reading this morning in worship. He leads the table, which is an expression of collaborative ministry for American University. You can learn more about that, you hear that, at the EDOW table. Chat with them today. Now, I would like to say that Canon Anna Olson leads our school and guides our offerings, and the the Reverend Amanda X. Cardwell, in her role of Director of Formation and Discernment, stewards our youth, young adult, and campus ministry endeavors. Our third diocesan priority: to equip our congregations and leaders for the work of equity and justice. So there's a lot that's happening in our equity and justice work, and the first goal is to strengthen the leadership teams to advance efforts that we are already ongoing, as I've mentioned, in reparations and racial justice, creation care, ministry with migrants and refugees. There is already tremendous collaboration among us. You're going to hear a report from Reparations Committee later today. Many of you, I see it when I come to visit, are involved in good creation care work. And frankly, there's more about ministry among migrants and refugees than I could attempt this morning. Again, except to thank you for all involved, for your love, and to ask for your prayers. And the two other goals for this year focus on the priorities, your priorities as a local congregation, and the ministry of our wonderful deacons. Now, as part of the strategic plan, we made the decision in 2020 to create a full-time diocesan position for equity and justice. Ms. Michelle Dibley now serves in that role. She began as an interim when we needed to evaluate the efficacy of that role, having two people served in it in relatively short order. So we knew something had to change. And within 6 months, she helped clarify the goals of that role and embody it so beautifully that in universal acclaim, all who worked with Michelle asked if she could please stay on as missioner, and thankfully she agreed. Yeah, I want you to clap for all of them, but please clap for Michelle. Archdeacon Steve Seeley continues our investment in the calling, formation process, and placement of deacons. We now have 35 deacons serving throughout the diocese and 18 more moving toward ordination. Now, as a reference point, as a point of reference, in 2011, when I began as your bishop, there were 4 deacons and no process as yet to raise up those who felt called to this vital ministry, servant ministry. And to be fair, there were many in the diocese ambivalent about the need for deacons. Now every congregation wants a deacon. And I dare say that in every congregation there are people with a deacon's heart, which is where deacons come from, by the way, from the congregations that raise up the people with the deacon's heart. And supporting the ministry of deacons has been one of the most fruitful collaborative investments we have made. And I want to show you, do you have the picture of the deacons? Let's get the picture up. Isn't there a picture of the deacons? Will you join me in thanking our deacons? Okay, I'm bringing this home now. There you have it. That was my best summary of the ministry we've committed to as a diocese. So let me just say one more time that the most important thing we do as a church is to gather each week around Jesus' table, to draw strength from his grace, uphold one another in his love, and to proclaim by word and deed his gospel, invite others to follow him, and to be his body in our corners of the world he died to save. The final instruction Jesus gave to his disciples, and that through his Spirit he gives to us now, is to love one another. He also commanded us to love our neighbor, and even to love those whom we perceive as our adversaries, to love everyone as he loves us. It's a really big thing he asks of us, and we stumble in these efforts. I know that I do, but that's part of the call too, to embrace and accept our humanity, our clay jarness, with grace and mercy, and to remember that Jesus knows that we're human and loves us still and calls us still, each one of us, and the Episcopal Church as a whole, to follow in his way of love. And in a time such as this, and it is a time, it's easy to fall prey to the feeling that we're actually quite powerless, which is the evil one's most convincing lie. And the truth is that every effort, large or small, every effort for love makes a difference for good. God's love works through our human efforts to show up, to speak up, to actively care, to hold one another in love. And I want to thank you for answering that call, for being the body, and for allowing me to walk alongside you. And in this past year, blessing the call to expand my public role in ways I could never have imagined and could not do without you. You are my thank you. You need to know that you are my inspiration. I love you, and I want nothing more than for you to thrive and grow as individual followers of Jesus and the communities of faith in his name. So let's all go do that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. You are very kind. And you also get a break. So yes, you can clap now. We will convene you, I don't know, shortly.